How you gonna get free this time? Falling into a blue sky mind. Came to me in that song, my friend. I just wanna go back again. Hey. Mother standing right next to me, showing me what I need to see. Hey. Rain is falling into my mouth. Flowers blooming all up and down. I found in and through the body. It's in and through the body. All along. In and through the body. All along. It's in and through the body. All along. In and through the body. All along. It's in and through the body. All along. In and through the body. All along. It's in and through the body.
Hey everyone, welcome to class 2, Tend Her. We're getting into the body tonight, so here we go. This is probably the topic that, sorry, let me get my music to stop here. There we go. The topic that I like to explore the most. This is the one that really sings to me. So really excited to have all of you here. We're up to, everyone, officially 1,009 women. And I just saw that a couple more people joined just recently. And there is unlimited space online. That's the beauty of online. So if you know people that can benefit, or you've got a friend you want to do this with, or you've got a coworker or grandparent or someone who could use a little bit more hope in their life, send them the link. Get them engaged and involved with all of this. I know we're throwing so much at you, and we want to give you as many tools and resources and ideas and connections as possible, because I don't know, we're in strange times right now, and the more we have in our toolbox, I think the better. So really happy to have so many of you along tonight. I want you to know that last time I had Kimberly here helping me out with the chat box. She's not here tonight, so I'm going to be running the chat box tonight. Which means I'm not always great at watching everything, because those of you who know me well know I'm not a very good multitasker. I have to do things like one thing after the other. So if you do have a question, so like last time, I'm going to present some content. We're actually going to do a lot of practices tonight. So that'll be from 6 to 7. And then from 7 to 8, I'm going to stay on maybe the whole hour, maybe half the time, depends on how many questions there are. But I'm probably not going to be able to do a very good job of tracking questions in the chat box tonight. So if you do have a question at any time during this next hour that you want me to perhaps address or talk about, if you can put it in that very special Q&A box, it's at the very bottom, so it's different than our chat box. I don't mind if you all chat. In fact, if you don't like looking at the chat, just don't look at it. But I think it's also a great way for people to be in connection and community. But if you have a question, put it in the Q&A, because I'll be able to watch that a little bit better and be able to find that at the end. Or you can just save your questions until the end. That'll work too. So happy that there are 172 of us on so far. Let's dive in. We're going to do just a little bit of a review from last week in case you haven't had a chance to join or watch class 1. And by the way, each of these classes really stand alone. So if you don't make it, but you like to be here in the energy of the group and what we're sort of co-creating together, come on a Monday night. Even if you haven't, people are always like, I haven't watched it yet. I'm like, it's okay. It stays on this website indefinitely. You can use all of the resources and tools whenever it works for you in your schedule. So, the first announcement that I want to make is these hope circles. So last week, Wednesday, Kate Moreland did a hope huddle, and people sort of came. She talked about what creating circles looks like, some of the, what do we say, structure that can help make a healthy women's circle. And several people sort of already were grouped together and met people that night. If you didn't have a chance to get on that call, no worries. There's still a chance to join a hope circle. I think so far, I believe Kimberly told me today we have about 17 people who have said, yes, I want to be in a circle. We tend to sort of try to put you with people that are in your area in case you want to meet in person. But certainly there are Zoom circles that happen that are really helpful as well. So if this is something you might be curious about, give it a try, right? You can attend one and see if it sings to you. You can email us, info@heartlandyoga.com, and in the subject line put, I want to be in a circle. And then in the body of the email, let us know where you live. Again, it might not be perfect in terms of how we set things up, but you'll get placed in the place that you need to be. And maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. It's okay, but this is an option, and I will tell you this, from all of the things that have come out of Tend Her in the last 4 to 5 years, I really truly believe that some of these groups that have come together is probably one of the most lasting legacies of this whole program. I've met so many women over the years that have said to me, I got randomly placed in a Tend Her group. We still connect. These are my people. We talk about really real things. They've supported me through lots of changes in my life. So if this is something you're curious about or scared about or resistant to, I would recommend that you give it a try. I hope that you are getting the 21-day meditation. I think we put out meditation number 5 today. Someone emailed me and said, I know I'm signed up for it. I'm not getting the emails. I would suggest that you look maybe in your spam. It comes from what's called Dr. Betsy's, I think, Dr. Yoga Mama School or something like that. So take a look. I believe it's there. Otherwise, you can always just go to the online educational portal, and I'm actually going to put it in our chat box right now for everyone. It's just store.dryogamama.com, and then that's where you'll be able to sign in and access all of it. So all of the meditations through day 5 are up, all of the classes we've done so far are up, all of the yoga. So just to know that's there for you. All right. The Hope Summit. Today is the day that registration opens. So it's going to open as soon as this class is done at 8 p.m. So at the end of class, we'll put the link in for that. But you can definitely join us. I think we have 125, 135 spots. It was a really powerful experience last year, like beyond anything I could have imagined. Definitely beyond what we believed it was going to be, and I imagine this year will be as powerful. So if you like the idea of gathering with other women, or again, you're terrified of gathering with other women, I highly recommend this. It would be something you could even consider traveling for. It was that beautiful last year. A group of women all in sort of support and openness with each other. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. So if this is something you're interested in, again, registration will open in like 2 hours. So we'll give you all the details. All right, so just a couple slides of review from last time. The thing about hope is that it is like a balance. It's a space. It's a place where we are asking to hold both the despair and the challenge and the darkness and the shadow of life alongside the hope and the joy and the light and the expansion. That We're always sort of balancing between these two, but we don't get all hope and all beauty and all joy, and we don't get all despair. It's definitely a balance here, but we have to learn to hold this, and we have to learn to create enough space in ourselves to be able to really carry all of the complexities that life is going to bring to us. One of the big questions that I asked you to work with and to consider is what's breaking your heart right now? What's making you feel despair? In the Wednesday night class that Kate Moreland led, she put us into small groups, and I attended as a student, and I ended up with 3 beautiful women, and we talked about our answers to this question. And I was a little blown away by how much emotion I felt being listened to, being heard by 3 other women, and also how much, as I sat and really felt into it and was seen and heard by these 3 gorgeous women that I fell in love with, I realized how much despair I am holding. Despair about the world, despair about some personal things in my life, despair about, the aging process, despair about, family things, right? So this is a necessary thing for us to really work with hope. We have to be willing to look at and care for and integrate the things that are hurting, and pays as much attention to that as the beautiful light-filled things in our life. We also talked about last time that throughout the course of this program, we're going to work with hope from a horizontal vantage point as well as a vertical. So the horizontal is really working with the science of hope, which is asking us to get clear on what we want, what are the pathways to get what we want, and how do we maintain sort of the energy to actually follow through on things. This is a very science-based approach, and I love it. I think it's powerful, but we're also going to work with the vertical, which is a little bit more of the spiritual, esoteric piece of hope. And that was where that question came from. What gives you despair? Because when we work with the vertical, we have to work with the shadow. We have to work with what's under the surface. And when we do that, we also get to work with our deep and beautiful and bright potential as well. So that's just a touch of what we did last week. So this week we're going into the wondrous body. We're going to work in our body tonight, and the message that I want to get across is that you contain an inner healer inside of yourself. So your body is an extremely wise entity, and it has so much guidance for you. If you can learn to create presence with yourself and learn to listen in a really deep way to what the body wants you to know. The reason I think that this topic of embodiment is so precious to me, I mean, it's been the source of it truly is my specialty area. It's where I've put so much study in these last 25 years. But I think more than that, it's such a personal story for me. And that I would say, I was sitting with this today and thinking about how do I want to talk about this and share this. I think for a good half of my life, a good 25 years of my life, I was not living in my body. I was not grounded or very steadfast in my body. I was definitely living in my headspace. I had a trauma that happened to me as a child. And because of this, I, at that point, really started to sort of exit the body. And this is typical when we have a trauma. It's not an uncommon thing that we start to dissociate or not be fully present in our physical body. Traumas are stored in the body, and they're often sort of pushed down very, very deep. And so for me, of course, at the time I didn't realize it. This is all retrospectively that I've looked back and realized, oh, wow, you really were not in your body. And it was harmful for me. So some of the ramifications of not being really grounded and steady in the body, at least for me, were digestion issues, autoimmune problems, migraine headaches, anxiety, sleep problems. A deep, I can say this, a deep hatred for my body. There was a period of time that I really hated my body, just hated it. And I didn't know what to do. That hatred for my precious, beautiful body showed up like over controlling the food that I put in my body and over controlling how much I moved, over exercising my body. The things that I weren't doing for my body were listening to it, resting it, allowing it to receive pleasure. It was a very dysfunctional relationship with the body, really and truly until I found yoga. And that was the start. Now, I don't want to create some kind of assumption that yoga was the balm that fixed everything. It certainly gave me a pathway in to being more present and mindful in this body of mine. But it took I would say it's taken 20 years to really start to re-inhabit my physical vessel, to be present in it, to care for it, to listen to it, to attend to it, to respect it. And I'm also very aware that my healing work with my relationship to my body isn't done yet. I don't know if it will ever be done. I still sense that there are parts of my body that are shut down or still holding trauma that I am working with slowly but surely. I would say when we work on coming back into our bodies, it's nonlinear. It's not a straight path. There's not one thing that's going to just like bingo get you back in your body. But when you're back in your body, you're certainly more intuitive. I'm more intuitive. I'm more present. You make better decisions. There's a deeper clarity. I don't forget things in the same way. I don't lose my keys in the same way. I am just more present. I feel more real as well. So I hope that this conversation tonight and all of the practices we do give each of you an opportunity. I don't know your relationship to your body, but I am guessing, in fact, I know that I'm not alone in terms of feeling challenged by symptoms in the body, diagnoses in the body, the weight our body's carrying, the pain in our joints, the wrinkles on our face. As women, the number one source of shame, unfortunately, is the body. It doesn't look that way for men, but it certainly looks that way for women. So my hope is that we do some things tonight that help you re-inhabit your body with more presence, with more respect. I always tell people, I think it's sometimes too far of a stretch to say the goal is to love your body. I think that sometimes feels like a really impossible stretch for many reasons. We're going to get into some of them tonight, but I think we can all learn to respect. We can all learn, you can not necessarily like your neighbor, but you can respect them, right? You can, be kind to them. And sometimes with enough years and enough time and enough respect, you might just grow to like the neighbor or grow to like the body. So that's my goal, is we all just foster a little bit more respect for these beautiful vessels that we're in. So let's start with a tool. Let's just start to dip in. Let's connect into our bodies. Whenever I touch into my body, my right hand always seems to go to my heart. And you can even see I'm sort of rubbing it right now. Sometimes I tap it a little bit. And then my left hand often rests on my abdomen. I noticed the other day that I'm actually sleeping this way now. When I go to sleep, my right hand goes to my heart, my left hand goes to my abdomen. And by the way, the abdomen, the belly, and the heart are both wisdom centers in the body. We have 3 wisdom centers: the belly, the heart, and the sort of third eye, pineal gland area. And so if that feels comfortable, Maybe place a hand on your heart or a hand on your abdomen, or just intuitively feel into where would I like to touch. Maybe you want to rub your arms or your legs a little bit, but just starting to land a bit more in the body. If it feels okay to your nervous system, you can close your eyes. Sometimes closing the eyes can create more anxiety. So again, you're listening to what feels right to your body. And as you start to tune in to sensations in the body, maybe you can feel where your hands are placed on the body. Maybe you can feel the touch of your clothing on your skin. Maybe you can feel the sensation of the air on your bare skin. And as you start to just bring more attention, more awareness into the body, you may already be doing this. If you're not, you can experiment with this, just a little bit of rocking. So just almost as if you're sitting in a rocking chair, and there's just a little bit of subtle movement forward and back, or maybe side to side. Now, as you stay with sensation in the body, maybe it's where your hands are touching the body, maybe it's another area of the body that's calling to you. It's the volume is turned up in that area. Could be a place of injury or a place of tightness. Just stay with it. We're not changing anything. We're not improving upon anything. We're just observing, listening, and being present with the body. And if your hand is by chance resting on your abdomen, I encourage you to take a deeper breath now, breathing into the abdomen, feeling the abdomen expand as you breathe in. And as you exhale, seeing if you can feel your awareness drop a little bit deeper down into the body. So as you inhale, you feel that expansion in the abdomen. As you exhale, it's like you're trying to let your attention drop, like an anchor drops down in the water, trying to let your attention drop down deeper. And as we drop our attention down deeper on the exhale, you might start to feel more awareness in your pelvis, which is often considered the root of the body. Or your attention might drop down as deep as the feet, feeling the sensation of your feet on the earth. So stay here for 2 more breaths, breathing into the abdomen as you exhale, awareness dropping down deeper into your body. Wherever your hands are, bringing them together now in front of the heart and starting to rapidly rub the palms together. So you create heat, friction. You could even say you amp up the energy between your hands. And then eventually bring the hands and place them right over the sockets of the eyes. almost as if you can feel the heat from your hands settling into your eye sockets. Now, keeping your hands over your eyes, begin to gently blink the eyes open and then eventually release the hands down back into your lap. So, how'd that feel? How'd that feel to land attention in the body? If we're not conscious of landing our attention in the body, most likely we're not going to be in it. Our culture, our educational system has very much taught us to stay up here. Rationalizing, thinking, planning, judging. We stay very caught up here, and we miss out on all the information, all the data, all the guidance, all the wisdom that really lives in the body. So yeah, it's good to take. It doesn't also take very long, actually. It's just a shift of your awareness. Oh, I'm dropping in now. All right, so let's talk more about this amazing, powerful body that we each have been gifted with. We've each incarnated. Our souls have come into these bodies in all their different shapes and sizes and colors, and we have the exact vessel, I believe, that we're meant to have in this lifetime. And there is a lot of inherent hope in the body, whether or not you feel it yet, whether or not you've experienced yet. There's a lot of hope in this vessel that is our body. It's wise. Our bodies are self-healing. They know how to heal if we can sort of get out of the way. Our bodies often know how to heal. One of my favorite things about the body is it cannot lie. It's incapable of telling you mistruths. Well, whereas our mind is constantly making things up. Our mind is spinning stories and convincing us of things that may never happen, most likely will never happen. And our minds are often the source of great suffering for us, whereas the body, not that the body doesn't suffer as well, but the body just tells truth. So I have found the body to be a far more consistent ally to me in terms of helping me understand what I'm really feeling and what I really need to do. So our bodies are amazing. In the words of my meditation teacher, Deepak Chopra, he has said the body is your greatest decision-making tool. And I absolutely believe this to be the case. Let's actually do this. Let's check in. This is exercise number 2. I told you there's a lot of experiential work tonight. Again, hand back on the heart, maybe another hand on the belly. So choosing a wisdom center, and you might already know, maybe your heart tends to speak to you more than your belly, that gut instinct. Maybe your belly tends to speak to you more than your heart. Maybe you're like, I have no idea, Betsy. Just place one hand on each of those wisdom centers. So I want to teach you a very, very quick exercise. I've taught this so many times. So many of you on this call are going to be like, I already know this. But if you don't know this can be pretty life-shifting. I know it has been for me. It's the idea that sometimes our mind can convince us that this is what I should do, or this is the decision I need to make, whereas the body is screaming like, no, 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 don't do that. So I have found over the years that if I consistently check in with my body and ask, is this in my highest interest? My body will always tell me. It'll tell me yes or to tell me no. So I'm going to teach you how to really start to tap into your yes and your no in your body. So we've already really grounded and stabilized ourselves into our core already. You can keep your eyes open, or you can just gently shut the eyes. And we're going to ask each of our body a question. Actually, we're going to first check in and create a baseline by stating something that's true to our body, and then watching how the body responds. So the statement I'd like you to say out loud or internally is, I am, and then your name. So as I say, I am, Betsy Brandel Rippentrop, my body expands. It's like, yeah, you are. That's who you are. So just speaking to yourself, saying, I am your name. And then C, does the body give you any kind of like expansion? Often it feels like a expansion forward. It can feel like heat. It can feel like tingling. If you're not getting anything, that's okay, because this is a practice. The more you do it, the more you start to see its power. And then to get your no in your body, say, I am Whitney Houston, and see what the body does. So for me, I feel like a pulling back. I feel like, no, you're not. You can't sing like that. You're not Whitney, right? So this sort of gives us our baseline. You say a statement that's true, the body gives you a signal. You say a statement that's false, the body gives you another signal. So if you can imagine, you can use this all the time. I use this so many times a day, it's not even funny. Something as simple as, it's in my highest interest to take the back way home today. The answer I actually just got was no, which is interesting because it's my favorite way home. But I have many times asked my body, it's in my highest interest to go home on the interstate, and I get a no, and then I go on it anyway, and there's huge traffic. So it's almost like this higher knowing sort of knows things that our conscious little mind can't figure out. So I encourage you to use this. It can be something as simple as it's in my highest interest to eat this today or this today, and sort of see if your body gives you a preference or an answer. Now, the caveat to all of this, if you are asking a really big question, like, should I leave my job? Should I move across the country? Should I get a divorce? These are big questions that the body, of course, there's going to be pros and cons to all of those things. So sometimes when I ask a big question like that, my body will go forward and back and forward and back, like, well, yeah, there's some good things and there's also some not so good things. So can you balance all of that? Yeah, this is muscle testing. Thank you, Roxanne. This is muscle testing. The body will tell you. So I do heart is where my happens. Some people feel it more in their belly, and some people will even do it with their fingers. They can sort of muscle test with their fingers. But I do believe it's a powerful tool in terms of helping us really start to get clear on what's in our highest interest. And that phrase is a powerful one, like it's in my highest interest. See what the body says to that. Now, if we're going to talk about hope in the body, of course we have to talk about despair in the body. On this particular slide, I'm calling it darkness, but I want to put out there that I don't mean darkness as in bad. We like to make things good and bad. Light is good, dark is bad. It's just reality. We all carry toxic sludge. We all carry contraction, constriction, pain, all kinds of stuff in our bodies, and it's not just personal. So I want to break this out a little bit. We're all holding collective stuff, we're holding ancestral stuff, and then we have all of our personal stuff as well. So this book sort of rocked my world a couple years ago when it first came out, The Myth of Normal by the psychiatrist Gabor Mate. It's a big, thick one, but it's got so much amazing, beautiful research and guidance in it. And Dr. Mate's thesis in many ways, or how he at least starts the book out as, is that our culture is just not normal. It's toxic. So not only are we eating a lot of processed foods, our soils are depleted. Sometimes our tap water is undrinkable. There's chemicals in the air. We're using too many plastics. There's far too much pharmaceutical use, right? The list goes on and on. That, and he makes the point that we think our culture is normal because it's all we've known, but that in fact it's quite toxic. Now, added on to just the physiological things, there is just the stress of the speed and the hustle culture and sort of what it takes to get ahead in this culture. His idea, and I stand behind it, is that most of us, because of this toxic culture, our nervous systems are way dysregulated. Now, Dr. Mate does not speak about this in his book, but I felt like we needed to add it because, we're 1,000 women strong in this program. And not only are we living in a toxic culture, but we're living in a patriarchal culture, which means there's a whole lot of programming that's happened to all of us at a very subliminal level that we're probably not even very aware of, that has shown us or told us or sort of made us believe that there is an ideal. There's an ideal way to look, there's an ideal weight, there's an ideal body size, there's an ideal way to mother, there's an ideal, right? And gosh darn, we better figure out what that is. And there's also a lot of messaging that as women, we're supposed to stay small and silent, not only in our bodies, but also in how we express ourselves. So this is also, it's sort of like we've all been put under a spell. And I think the way we move through this is we have to talk about it. We have to express it. We have to shine a light on it and say, look, y'all, we've been programmed. From the time we were watching Disney movies and the princess found the prince, right? This is programming that has challenged and harmed us potentially on many levels. This blew my mind when I read this APA report on the sexualization of girls. 52% of advertisements in those magazines that we all buy objectify women as sexual objects. 52%. Now, what about men's magazines? It goes way up. 80% of advertisements in men's magazines objectify women. It's women selling products based on how they look. So this is happening all around us. This is just the data from print media. We haven't even begun to understand what's happening to all of our brains with the rate and speed of the social media images that we're seeing and our children are seeing on a regular basis. This is real stuff, right? That we're all just sort of swimming in all the time. And Jackette, I'm seeing your chat here that the objectification and the programming for women of color is even more than cisgender white women. So thank you for adding that to the conversation as well. So that's all the cultural toxic stuff. I mean, we just scratched the surface on that. So not only are we working with sort of the cultural sludge and toxicity, but we're living and working with intergenerational patterning as well. There's been a lot of conversation and research and books that have been written really in just the last several years about this idea that we are carrying the trauma and the stress of our forebears, the people who came before us. And it can be explained in several ways. One, of course, is nurture, in that if we come from a family where there was a lot of poverty, that fear that there's not enough is sort of taught to us. And even if we have more than enough abundance in our bank account, we may constantly be fearing the worst because that's something we learned, right? So that would be the nurture piece. But what I find really fascinating is that there's also a nature piece. There's literally like epigenetic DNA stuff going on that essentially, if you look at any of these examples, the great-great-grandparents went through slavery or wars or oppression. That trauma is literally passed through our epigenetics, through our DNA. And so we are, if the people that came before us weren't able to really heal and clear and integrate this trauma, we are the next one in line to do that work. So I think about all of the internal work I'm seeking to do on myself, with the hope that it's also going to free up my children so that they're not having to deal with my own trauma, right? I want to clear it out of my system so that they're not taking it on. And there are powerful studies. I have to laugh. I'm sorry, this picture is super clearly AI generated. It was the best I could find. But there are lots of studies done with mice. The classic study that people talk about often is that mice were given the smell of cherry blossom at the same time that they were shocked. So, of course, what they developed was a fear of the smell of cherry blossom because they got shocked with it. Well, what researchers were quite surprised to find is that this fear of just smelling cherry blossom stayed in the lineage of the mice for 4 to 5 generations, which means that the new mouse, if their great 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 grandmother smelled the cherry blossom and got the shock, they still fear. Their bodies go into a fear response when they smell cherry blossom, even though they're not getting shocked, nor have the 3 generations since then been shocked when they've been around cherry blossom. So it just shows you, and clearly this is a mouse model. We don't know how much of this applies to a human model, and yet it's food for thought, right? That there is the potential that the anxiety we feel, the challenges we feel in our own nervous system is directly related to our lineage. So it can be helpful for us to understand it, and we may never understand it. Like, I don't know anything about my great 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 grandparents. I don't know what happened to them. So, but it can help us sort of make sense of stuff that's going on in our system that we're like, where is this coming from? Okay, so we have cultural, we have genetics, sort of familial, generational stuff, and then we got all of our own stuff too, right? We have the symptoms in our body, the depression, the anxiety, the grief, the addiction, the tendency to numb out, trauma, like that's all part of what we're dealing with as well. Why are we talking all about this, by the way, if we're dealing with hope? Well, if we're going to work with hope, we have to work with despair. We have to understand trauma. And so we're going to go into this in as simplistic a way as possible here, in a way that we can all really make sense of. And what I really feel like is that if we have trauma, and most of us, we're going to get into this, have had some trauma in our life, if we're living in a body that hasn't processed that trauma, so we're living with an amygdala that's in overdrive, it's going to be really hard for us to choose hope. It's going to be really hard for us to reach for hope. Not impossible. Not impossible. We're going to talk about all kinds of tools that help us with this. But what I'm saying is, if we are in a still sort of highly aroused place from trauma, that we've never really worked this through our system, it is going to be just gosh darn harder to reach for hope. So we have to understand the big picture here, just like we're talking about in this program. We have to be willing to hold the dark and the light. We have to see all of it and make space for all of it. Trauma and the nervous system are more complex than we once thought of. I love this picture so much. This picture on the left is your nervous system. Picture on the right is clearly a tree. Look at the beautiful mirror here of these two. But as little as 20 years ago, well, let's define trauma first. Trauma is anything that overwhelms your capacity to cope, leaves you feeling hopeless, helpless, out of control, or unable to respond. And majority of us, 70% of us, have experienced at least one traumatic event. We women were 4 times as likely to experience trauma, and 1 in 4 women carry sexual trauma. So that's the majority of us on this call. If you haven't experienced trauma, you know a lot of people that have. And so this conversation is as applicable to you as anyone. And trauma is often described as big T trauma versus little t trauma. So when we say the word trauma, we usually think of big T, right? Assault, wars, natural disasters, etc. But there are lots of little t traumas that can add up. Divorce, moving, death, addiction. So if we look at trauma as encompassing not only little things but big things, all of us are impacted by trauma. So this wise psychiatrist wrote this book. I'm guessing that a lot of you have this book on your shelf. I love that this has become such a popular book. When a book shows up at Target, we know that it's like made it. And I noticed this book being sold at Target recently. I'm like, that's so cool. Because it's a thick one. It's very dense, but it was really Dr. van der Kolk. He's one of the people that really started to help us rethink trauma. So even when I was trained in graduate school 22, 23 years ago, trauma was still something that we believed was in the mind, that if you could get people to talk about their trauma, that was going to be healing. Whereas what we now know because of Dr. van der Kolk and so many other trauma researchers is that trauma lives in our bodies and it lives in our nervous systems. So when trauma happens, we leave the body or we disconnect from the body. And the work of Dr. Judith Blackstone, she's a psychologist, has really helped me and so many people that I've worked with conceptualize this. So you have a trauma, right? You have something that happens. The body goes into a nervous system dysregulation, and you start to not be fully present in your body. What does this look like? Dr. Blackstone describes it as we're either living out in front of our body, we're sort of floating above the body, or we're living off to the side. And again, retrospectively, as I can look back on my own journey through trauma, I was living out in front of my body. So how this manifested for me is I was in the future. I was going, I was goal-oriented, I was doing, I was busy, I was moving fast, speeding through life, constantly on the go. Because if I slowed down too much, there would be a lot to have to sit with and be with. Other people are a little bit more floaty. They're not really very tethered to the earth. They're dreamy, right? Or they're sort of off to the side, looking at their life sort of as a bystander versus right here in the middle. So I think this can be really useful for us to even sit with. Right? Like, how are we actually in our bodies? Or are we sort of out front trying to plan and trying to make sense and trying to figure out what's going to happen? And if I've got it all arranged and organized, it's all going to be okay? Or are we just sort of in la la land watching lots of Netflix and not really, settling into our system? Or are we just sort of watching it all happen? So as Dr. Gabor Mate says, all of us are dysregulated because we live in this culture. We live in these crazy times. I'm seeing you guys are chatting about Washington too, right? Yeah, talk about nervous system dysregulation. So this is what a dysregulated nervous system looks like. We're tight, we are wired, but we're also exhausted. Often we are not sleeping well. We're either, our emotions all over the place, we're totally numbed out, we don't feel any emotions. Digestive issues are very common, autoimmune problems are very common, and that's because of this. Someone was right. I saw someone say, is that the vagus nerve? It is. It's the 10th cranial nerve, vagus nerve. And you see it starts in the brainstem, and it actually innervates the lungs, it innervates the digestion, it innervates our immune system. And so if we're dysregulated, there's lots of things that are going to get out of whack for us. And, a lot of us are living in these stressful, dysregulated bodies, and they become normal. Just like Dr. Gabor said, you don't even know you're in a toxic culture because it's all you've been in. I mean, for me, I know for a fact that I was so dysregulated in my teens and my 20s. I was having diarrhea. I was anxious. I was having headaches all the time. I was for sure dysregulated. And long term, that turned into autoimmune stuff for me. So I can look back, but at the time, I had no idea. It was just me. I just go to the bathroom a lot. This is just what it looks like. So it's good, again, to see a name. This is what nervous system dysregulation looks like. And then most of us, even if we have some of these symptoms, we override them, right? We drink more coffee to get through. We consume sugar to give us a little boost to get through that afternoon meeting, right? So this is something we all have felt, but I want you to really look at these things and have a come to self moment here. Like, am I super dysregulated, and have I been dysregulated for a long time? Now, again, we've come a long way in terms of understanding trauma and dysregulation, but I go back to what I was taught in grad school 20 years ago, and it was basically that stress happens, you either go into fight or flight, and then when the stress is done, you go back into rest and digest. And so the idea is, one is the gas pedal, fight or flight, one is the brake pedal, rest and digest. And there's also a little flavor in here of, if you just learn to calm down, you can be like the yellow bird and not all whacked out like the red bird, right? So there's a little bit of judgment, victim-y energy in this, right? Like, just calm down. I mean, how many times have we heard that? Can you just take a breath and calm down? Well, what I want all of us to know is our nervous systems don't respond to rational thought. They just respond to what's going on in the moment. We actually can't control our nervous system reaction, which needs to take some of that victim shaming part off of, like, just take a breath and calm down. If your nervous system is in fight or flight, it's just in fight or flight. But the nervous system is way more nuanced than this very simple drawing. And this is what some of these researchers like Dr. Porges have helped us understand. There's all kinds of things that can happen when stress and trauma hit. So these are the they often call them the 4 Fs: fawn, fight, flight, freeze. So this is Dr. Porges's polyvagal theory. It's become very popular in the healing world. Came out in the late 90s. So again, it wasn't popular yet at the time when I was in graduate school. But it really helps, I think, in a more nuanced way, explain what happens when stress comes into our world. And so this is what happens to all of us. None of us are immune from this. It's going to happen to all of us. So essentially, when a stressor comes, when there's some kind of arousal, what Dr. Porges discovered, which this is the new piece, is that the very first thing we try to do when a stressor comes is we try to actually engage other people. We try to find other people who can soothe us or hug us or tell us it's going to be okay. So when we feel threatened in general, our first step is towards social engagement. Can also look like fawning, meaning that I'm going to be super nice and pleasant and try to please people to be safe. It can also look like fitting in. I'm going to blend in, talk quietly, stay small. If that doesn't soothe the nervous system, then it is going to go up towards fight or flight. So fight is essentially moving towards, so it can look like rage, anger, irritation, whereas flight is moving away from that stressor. It can look like panic, fear. It can literally look like fleeing. I'm going to leave this argument. I can't handle it right now. Now, if neither of those are actually satisfactory to our nervous system, or they don't give us the relief that we need, then we might go into freeze. And freeze essentially looks like, it's like the other options aren't working, and so I'm going into almost a sense of dissociation, immobility, collapse, almost a resignation. Anyone who's been in a major car accident that is like, I don't remember any of it, you went into freeze, right? Like the body just completely went into that freeze response. So you don't actually even have a memory of it. Or other intense traumas, often it's hard, we have a hard time remembering them because we literally went into freeze response. Now the deal with trauma is that, and again, throughout life, we're going to go through all of these different phases. Like, this is just how our amazing bodies are designed. But if we have a trauma that hasn't been processed or integrated in our system, the challenge is we can get stuck in one of these states. So we can get stuck in rage, or we can get stuck in anxiety, or we can get stuck in sort of a sense of helplessness, sort of a sense of shame and shutdown. So that's where we need to work with nervous system regulation tools to sort of help us reintegrate in our bodies. So my question for you, because all of us have a nervous system that can so again, we have the possibility of all of these options. But I tend to see in clients that I work with that all of us have sort of a well-worn path with one of these responses to stress. So do you get anxious? Do you get irritable? Do you get overwhelmed? Do you get confused? Do you get isolated? Like, that's me when I'm stressed out. Like, I don't want to be around anyone. I don't want to talk to anyone. It's like impossible for me to reach out to people. In fact, people will say later, you were really going through something. Why didn't you reach out? I was like, I literally can't. Like, when I'm in that place, I literally have a hard time reaching out to people. You can also get confused, sort of like spacey, like very unsure and uncertain. Or you can get super appeasing, like you just are trying to make everyone happy around you. Yeah, so it's key for us to know most of us have a default response to stress. And again, this is due to history. This is due to what's happened to us. And for me, yeah, it is isolation. I could get pretty confused too, a little overwhelmed. In addition to having sort of a default response, there's also a physiological piece that I'm not going to go into. I've talked about it in other classes I've taught, but the tissue that our body, some of us have more collagenous tissue and some of us have more elastic, flexible tissue, can also is related to our nervous system default response. So the point of this slide, and this is such an important point, whatever happens to you when you're stressed out is not your fault. So in the past, it's been adaptive to be irritable and angry, or to flee, or to shut down. What happens when we start to heal our nervous system and integrate is we have to ask ourselves the really important question of, is my default response functional? So for me, it's probably not real functional for me to hole up like a hermit and not reach out to anyone for help. That's not functional. It'd be far better for me, especially according to this model, to reach out, to socially engage first, right? So this is the question I want us all to wrestle with a little bit. Is my default response functional? And if not, is there a way for me to first be aware and then engage some of these tools that we're going to talk about? Okay, so let's talk about if I'm actually in a regulated system, what does it look like? And this was an old slide I pulled from a talk, so I'm kind of laughing. This is a picture of me, and I do look so calm in this. But I don't want any of you to believe I'm in a completely regulated nervous system all the time, because that would not be truthful or authentic. I get just as dysregulated as all of us. But a regulated nervous system looks like you are wide awake in the day without caffeine, and you can sleep at night. You're digesting well, so you're not having diarrhea, you're not having constipation, you are having regular bowel movements. If you're still cycling, your menstrual cycle is regular. Your body can get aroused, meaning you can have an orgasm if that's something that you'd like to have. You can close your eyes and let yourself rest and maybe fall asleep or settle in during Shavasana or during a movie on the couch. You can experience pleasure. You can shift between mental and physical states very easily. There's a lot of fluidness. There's a lot of grace. And you have the energy to get done what you need to get done. So this is what a regulated nervous system can feel like. So all of us have mastered survival mode because we're still here. We've all been through stuff, right? Big T traumas, little t traumas, divorces, job losses, financial issues, problems with our kids. So we have all mastered getting through it because we're still breathing, we're still kicking. But living in a dysregulated nervous system is not a great formula for hope and well-being and sort of more of a lightness of being. So what are the tools? You might be like, what are the tools? I've got some tools. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are all things that I practice and certainly teach people that I work with. I think the big picture, we talked about hope is about seeing the big picture. I think the big picture of working with the toxicities in our own system, working with the toxicities in our culture and maybe in our lineage, is we have to learn how to develop a trustworthy center within ourselves. The world is going to keep speeding on. We're going to continue to have ridiculous things happen in the news and in politics and in the world. We're going to have challenges in relationships. We're going to have despair. And if we can hone and practice and develop this trustworthy center in ourselves, in the yoga tradition, we would call it the central channel, then we're going to fare far better than if we allow all the dysregulation in the world to tap us into that and we're constantly back and forth and all over. So how do we do this? We do need to work on down-regulating things like shame and fear and stress and rage, and we need to up-regulate experiences like hope and compassion and love and resilience. So here are some of the tools, and these are all embodiment tools. And for those of you who are dysregulated or have trauma in the body that's unprocessed and not yet sort of integrated, this is really important to consider this possibility that the body is always the safest place to be. Might not feel that way if you have trauma in your system. It might be like, no, that's why I keep disconnecting from my body. And yet the only way through is to go in and be in the body. And the body actually is your ally. The symptoms it's giving you are not meant to destroy you or punish you. They actually are beautiful guidance if we can begin to wrap our head around it in that way. So the first tool, we already did this one. We just went into the body. So I took you into your body in that little sort of first centering, and I asked you on the exhale to see if the exhale could bring you in and down, could bring you down deeper, like an anchor in the body. So I often, when I'm trying to ground people and bring them into their body, I will say something as simple as, can you feel your feet or your pelvis right now? So just try it again. In this moment, come back into your body. Can you feel your pelvis or your feet? It doesn't matter which one. They both are grounding points in the body. One is not superior to the other. Some days I feel my feet more readily than my pelvis and vice versa. But great tool, drop into your feet or your pelvis. Another beautiful tool that's so simple is rocking. So this is something I also recommended, is that just rock a little bit. Can you just let the body rock? Again, very settling for the nervous system. When if it's good for babies, right? Why wouldn't it be good for we adults? Now, another tool that could go along with it, this is also why we rock our babies and sing them lullabies is that humming, singing, even just talking stimulates that vagal nerve, which then allows that parasympathetic nervous system response to come online, which is also why social engagement, talking to people, can be very soothing for our nervous system. If you don't have anyone around to talk to yourself out loud, or hum, or sing, or, make some kind of sound. Of course, breathing. It's still fascinating to me that we don't actually really teach a lot of breath techniques in our school systems or in other aspects of our culture, because breath is one of the most powerful ways to shift our mood and to also get us out of that real dysregulated nervous system. Of course, belly breathing is what we did tonight. And actually, let's just take a moment to do, I know, I love that frog too. His hands are right on his belly, like I was telling you to have your hands. Let's work with just 2 rounds of box breathing. So for those of you who are new to box breathing, you're breathing in for 4 counts. You're going to hold the breath for 4 counts. You're going to exhale for 4 counts. And then you'll hold the breath out for 4 counts. So this is why we call it box breathing. So I'll count us through. So let's start together. So whatever air is in the lungs, just release it out now. And together we're going to inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold. Exhale, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath out. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold. Exhale, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath out. You can take a full inhale and a full exhale. So such a powerful practice. I've said this before, but there was one year I was shopping at Best Buy over the holidays, and I was at that, checkout area where they take all the computers, and I saw a sticky note behind the desk that said box breathing, inhale 4, exhale 4. So even this is infiltrated sort of culture, this idea of how powerful breath is. All right, tool number 4, we also did this one already. The idea that our body is a choice determining X instrument. It will tell you yes, it will tell you no. Tool number 5, get out there in nature. Tool number 6, these mind-body practices. Clearly, I'm a fan of yoga, but there are many other practices. Tai Chi, Qigong, Pilates could be considered mind-body, but it's a chance for you to really drop in and feel the body. So some exercises sort of keep us out of our body. Long-distance running can be very dissociative, right? It's not that it's a bad form of exercise, but it's not always mind-body. So we want the practices that land us, right? Help us feel sensation in the body. Dance, shake, bounce. If you do yoga with me, we do a lot of bouncing and tapping and just kind of shaking things out. This can be really good. Just turn on some music and let your body dance and shake. Great way. This is what animals do when they've gone through a trauma. They shake. They get it all out. Nonlinear movement. I love this so much. I'm looking at our time, and we were going to do a practice of this, but I'm going to let you experiment with this on your own. And you just have to come to yoga with me because I do it in every single class I teach. All honor to Michaela Boehm. She's actually been on the Tend Her podcast, and so you can check that out. She's a somatic educator, and it is so easy. You are on all fours. You turn on music for about 4 or 5 minutes or longer. You close your eyes and just let your body move. There's no right or wrong way. And it's, to me, it's a chance to listen. Like I get in there and I just listen to, like, how does my body want to move? It is so powerful. I like to do it at the end of a day, sort of as a way to clear out my system after a work day. I clearly do it at the start of every yoga class, but it is, I'm seeing Lynn does it first thing in the morning. It's a powerful and so simple and so effective. Rest. We're not resting enough. We need more rest, whether it's restorative practices like this, yoga, or naps, or sleeping longer. I've been sleeping a lot longer in this last year, and it is profound at how useful it's been for me. So giving yourself plenty of rest. Don't feel like you're a hero if you only need 6 hours a night, right? Let yourself rest. Talk it out. So psychotherapy. This is my form of psychotherapy. That's why I put this picture in. I don't have any pictures of me doing classic psychotherapy, but I do a lot of somatic-based psychotherapy, which means people are lying on the floor, sort of in a restorative yoga pose, and we're talking through what's going on in their body. So psychotherapy, again, anytime we talking it out with friends, with colleagues, with family members is also effective at regulating our nervous system because we're stimulating that vagal tone. And then be with people. Be with people, connect. This engages our social engagement system, which is, again, a way to return to rest and digest. So, I know I went a little bit over. That was a lot, but so important for us to sort of, again, see the big picture of our body. So this is the soul work I want you to dive into for the week. We think about the horizontal level. We're working with that science of hope, which is Snyder's hope theory. So first of all, creating a goal for your body. What do you want for your body? And then figuring out what are the steps to get me there. And then what's going to give me the energy and the accountability to stay the course. So for me, my goal for this week is drinking water. So I stole my daughter's expensive Stanley cup because I do not have one of these, but she does. And I'm going to attempt to drink 2 of these every single day. So I tend to be someone who does not get enough water in. So that's my horizontal body goal for the week, and we'll see if I can carry it forward. And then from the vertical, which to me is always the more interesting, soul-stirring work, is beginning to ask some really hard questions and get clear on what's going on in your body. What's your body been trying to teach you? So I've been working with autoimmune stuff for many, many years, and I still am talking to my body, asking, what is this here for me for? What do I need to learn from this? Why is my body attacking itself? What am I angry about? So there's a lot of things to learn about the symptoms that are showing up in your body. I believe as a mind-body psychologist that nothing is random, and everything that's showing up in your body, all of the injuries, all of the illness, all of the pain, all of the contraction has deep meaning to it, but you have to figure out what it means. And this isn't always very clear-cut. There are a lot of resources and books out there, even just typing in things like, what's the symbolism of my left knee? My left knee is hurting. Can give you at least a starting point. But I find more just meditating, going in and asking, what is this about? What do I need to learn? And then the other big question is, what's your soul curriculum in this lifetime, right? Why have you had to go through stress, trauma, the things that have happened to your body? Why have you had to endure those in this lifetime? What was the curriculum that your soul chose? I really kind of hold, and again, this is just my belief system, it doesn't need to be yours, but the idea that as souls, we sort of choose our life curriculum, what we need to experience, the things we need to go through. And for me, I can really see retrospectively that trauma that I experienced as a child that jetted me out of my body almost instantaneously, and then I stayed out of it for a long time, that all happened because my work, my dharma in the world is working with the mind and the body. I had to literally know what it was like to be in a disconnected body for me to be able to do the kind of work I do today. And so it's asking sort of from a bigger perspective, why did I choose this curriculum? So it can also get us out of shame. Like, what's wrong with me? How come I've gone through all this? Or it could get us out of victim as well. And instead can sort of turn us towards a little bit more curiosity. All right, this is a real treat for this week. I'm so looking forward to this. We always do these bonus sessions on Wednesday, and this week you're going to get to meet one of my good friends and colleagues, Fanny Hungerford. She's a gifted psychotherapist. She's a yoga teacher. She's a meditation teacher. She specializes, she's really specialized in yoga nidra. She's a master at this. She's actually going to do a yoga nidra with us on week 4, Wednesday of week 4, to help us integrate everything. But this Wednesday, we were talking last week, she recently did a training with someone who's well known in the polyvagal world, and she learned a technique for helping people map and explore their nervous system. So she says, bring something to write on. Bring your journal and a pencil or pen, and you're going to do some work around exploring your nervous system. So look forward to that. Then Friday, Andrea and all of her magic is going to come up with some more sort of depth questions to take you a little bit deeper into this content of the body. Glimmer events, there's all kinds of events going on. If you have a glimmer event, send it to us and we're going to post it on our website. It looks like this week there's some cool film stuff going on. There's a day-long retreat, I think, at Prairie Woods this weekend. There's all kinds of cool stuff if you want to move out into the world, catch some more glimmers. And then this Hope Summit, registration starts soon. In fact, all of you that are on this, we're just going to put it in the chat box right now, the website, so you can, if any of you are wanting to register for the Hope Summit, I'm going to put it in right there. Boom. dryogamama.com/hope-summit. That'll get you there. Okay. I went 17 minutes long. I apologize. I like to stay timely, but this was such an important topic, and there's clearly a lot of stuff to get into. So I'm going to start to get through some of these questions that you all put in the Q&A box. I'll start there, and then I'll try to look through the chat box. But if you have a question, it's way easier for me to see it in that Q&A box. Oh, yeah. So Margaret asked a good question. This is an easy one. Is there a way to include the chats in the recordings? Yes. So what we'll do is in the Thinkific, sort of our educational site that stores all of the course material, under the video for week 2, I'll just put in there the chat as well, so you can look through what other people, all the different things that people are saying in the chat. Got it. Margaret, that was an easy one. All right, next question. How can you log on to Thinkific? Yes. Let me put that in the chat box as well. It is store.dryogamama.com. It's no www. It's just store.dryogamama.com. That'll take you to all the courses. You're going to click on Hope, the Hope course. You will have to have your email and your password that you sign up for the course with, but that should get you in there. Oh, Shannon, this is a very detailed question. I like it. When you talk about embodiment, are you talking about the embodied cognition theory? What I'm talking about with the simple word embodiment, it's simply feeling the body. There's a lot of research and lots of different disciplines. There's neuroscience, biology, psychology, and it's become a hot, you may know this, Shannon, if you know about embodied cognition theory, it's become sort of a hot area of study and research. The way that I understand embodiment is simply a person's capacity to actually feel what's happening in their body. And what the research shows is that there's definitely a continuum, meaning that some people are not feeling very much in their body at all, whereas other people are feeling everything in their body. And that's actually always not useful or helpful either. But it's the idea of when we have the capacity, another word for it, an interchangeable word, is interoception. So that's what science is really calling embodiment, interoception. Just like we have proprioception, we also have interoception, our body's capacity to feel the sensation, what's happening inside. And the research is showing that people who have good interoception or are more embodied, there are a whole lot of positive correlations with well-being, with health. The only caveat is if people have high levels of anxiety, sometimes their interoception is very high, but they're feeling every little thing, and then they're often attributing it to something anxiety provoking in their mind. And so that can be a little bit problematic. But in general, if we're talking in generalities, being in the body, this concept of interoception is related to well-being, specifically mental and physical well-being. I hope that satisfied your question there, Shannon. Yeah, Michelle writes a really thoughtful comment that I think is good for all of us to hear, that even for people who've lived an embodied life, meaning that you've engaged in a lot of things like yoga and exercise, running, dancing, all of these things that really can land us in our body, there are still shadowed areas where trauma resides that merit exploration and discovery. And there's still, of course, embarrassment and shame because we have spent so much of our lives comparing and being compared to other people's bodies. Isn't that the truth? I couldn't agree more with you, Michelle. So let's even just play the idea out that we've had a life where we have no trauma, and we've come from a family that has no trauma, and we live in a healthier culture than the United States of America. Let's just play that out, right? Which would be a rarity, of course. But even if we had ideal conditions, we still have shadow, because everyone has shadow no matter what. It's all the stuff we've rejected over the years, parts of self that we don't know. And our shadow, again, can have hard things in it and can also have really beautiful things in it. And the body is considered sort of a symbol or a representation of that shadow. So Michelle's exactly right. You can be doing tons of embodiment work. I mean, I'm an example of that. I'm a yoga teacher. I study this stuff. I know all of this information. And there are absolutely times where I'm very disembodied, where I'm living out in front of myself. I'm living off to the side. I'm living above myself. And so it does feel like this work of embodiment is just like anything else. It's a practice. It's a daily commitment. It's something we keep coming back to over and over and over and over. And agreed that our culture, unfortunately, does sort of set us up for lots of comparisons. And clearly social media doesn't help any of that either. So we all have sort of continuous work, I would say, in terms of creating respect and consciousness and compassion for our physical bodies. Yeah, Michelle then writes, it's a continuous journey. Yep, exactly. Yeah, Lindsay, that's a good question. I had a slide up that said the body is the safest place to be. I'm curious to know how you define safe. So often I've considered safety as a feeling. So when my body is in physical pain or I feel unsafe, I have a hard time understanding what this means or believing it. It's a good question. So the reason the body is the safest place to be, my conceptualization of it, is because the body is landing us, the body and the breath, couple those things, is continuously landing us in the present moment. And when we have trauma, it is something that's happened in the past. It's the tyranny of the past. Or when we have a lot of anxiety about life and the future, we are projected forward. So there's something very stabilizing, and there's something very steadying for us. It's finding that center that happens in the body, right? So if we can really land our consciousness, you can do it right now, landing it in the body. So I'm feeling my pelvis, I'm feeling my hands in my lap, I'm feeling that I'm leaning forward a little bit, so I'm going to pull myself back. So I'm really landing in the body. And in general, when we're in the present moment, we're suffering much less. Most of our suffering is coming from the tyranny of the past, things that have happened in the past, or all the fear of the unknown future. Whereas landing in the body, landing in the breath, and letting ourselves return to that over and over is the safest place to be. Now, you bring up physical pain. Absolutely, if you're living in a body that has a lot of physical pain, has some chronic pain, it can feel quite unsafe. There's some really interesting research. Let me see if I can pull this researcher's name out of my encyclopedia here. Stephen, it's not coming, but it will. There's some really interesting research that chronic pain in the body, it's sort of a chicken egg game. Like, what came first? Did the pain come because we were disembodied? We weren't really living in our body. We were living in our head. We were sort of living outside of ourselves. And so the body creates pain. It's sort of this idea that we have a curriculum and the body's trying to help us. So the body creates pain to bring us back into it, because we can't ignore the body when it's in pain. Or, so this researcher, I can see all of his books. I will come up with this. I'll put it in the show notes eventually. Is that even all the painful symptoms in the body, they often can soften when we bring presence and awareness to them. I worked as a pain psychologist for the first part of my career, and so I was working daily with people with chronic pain. And there's something interesting that the parts of self, whether it's pain, whether it's emotional pain, whether it's shame, so often our solution is to distance ourselves, to run from it, to push it away, to ignore it, to, I've felt in my own life often a desire to just cut it out. Can I just cut this out? Can I just let this go? I don't want to carry this pain anymore. And it rarely works. What tends to work better is when we are willing to be with it. It's this whole tension of opposite stuff. Okay, I'm willing to be with my pain. I see my pain. I'm holding my pain. I'm feeling it. I'm letting myself stay with it. And typically when this happens, there is a softening that can happen. It's almost like the pain feels some relief that, she's paying attention to me. She sees it. But I also want to honor, Lindsay, that if we are carrying a lot of pain and trauma in our body, it often can feel like a minefield. It can feel very unsafe. And so this process of embodiment and somatic work, it is nonlinear and it's a process. None of this stuff happens overnight. It's just taken me 20 plus years to get fully, and I wouldn't even say I'm fully back in my body. I'm almost there. I'm way further than I was 20 years ago. But if the body doesn't feel safe, honor that. Like, sit with that, be with that. That's okay. And keep trying some of these tools. Michelle wants me to again sort of explain this idea of soul curriculum. This is just sort of something that feels true to me, so it might not feel true to all of you. I'll just say that at the outset. But it's the idea that we each sort of have a curriculum in this life. My curriculum is different than anyone else's, and it's different than yours, but we have certain things that we're here to learn, to grow through, to experience, to understand. We might have karma that we have to work through in this lifetime. But that there is sort of a series of lessons. And so understanding that the things that look on the surface bad to us, traumas, abandonments, challenges that on the surface our human self can very much say, that was horrible. I would never want that to ever happen to anyone. Whereas from this higher soul perspective, we can say, oh, because I had that trauma when I was 5 years old and I left my body, that started a whole chain of events that led me to yoga, that led me to study psychology, that led me to study all of this, that helped heal me and now is helping other people. So it's this idea that, sometimes the things that look like the most horrible events in our life are part of our growth and evolution, or they can be. So I think when we think about our soul having a curriculum, it again can take us away from shame and that victim mentality and put us back into a place of agency and also curiosity. I think curiosity is a balm for so much pain. I'm really curious, why is this pain back again? I'm curious, why are my knees aching so much more this week? I'm really curious, what's going to come next? It's just such a different way to perceive things. Monica asks, will I ever be able to live from a place of neutrality where my behavior/nervous system is no longer informed by my various traumas, ancestral, generational, and personal? I don't know, Monica. I don't know. Actually, don't think that I don't know if we're ever really neutral. I think we sort of maybe move it into neutral states at times, but I think life is in many ways sort of a roller coaster of, they say, and much of what this class is based off of is this concept that in life we get 10,000 joys and we get 10,000 sorrows. Like, it's a mixed bag. So there's always going to be something. There's always going to be a stressor. I mean, it's kind of like a fantasy that we all have that someday we're going to arrive, or someday life is going to be easier, or someday that person is going to come in that rescues me, or someday it's all going to work out, right? And I think that maybe a more realistic, hopeful perspective is that there's going to be good and there's going to be challenge. There's going to be amazing, expansive experiences, and there's going to be times when I am contracted, I am back in that old trauma response. And Monica, I can speak to this a little bit more from, I guess, a research neuroscience perspective, and that is that we do have neuroplasticity in our brain, meaning we can have new experiences. We can create new patterning. We can create a patterning that is far more beneficial to our system than maybe what we were raised in. We can create that. But the old patterning that we were raised with, the old trauma stuff that's there, it stays. So neuroplasticity doesn't erase the old patterning. It just creates new patterning on top that is stronger and more powerful than the original patterning or the old patterning. So you can't, the phrase that is often said is you can't erase, but you can replace. So we can't erase the nervous system dysfunction. We can't erase the ancestral stuff. We can't erase the traumas that happened. But we can create new patterning that is stronger and more robust than the old patterning. But that does take effort, right? So we can all, the idea that we all have these plastic brains and we can create new patterning until the day we die. When we're 90, we can still create new behaviors. We can create new neuronal networks. But it takes effort. It takes commitment. It takes a willingness to do the work. And again, there's no overnight change. This is a slow and steady and nonlinear process.
So, Monica, my answer to you is yes and no. Yes, I think you can learn to live from a new place, a new pattern. And does the old stuff ever go away? No. But maybe the new stuff gets stronger than the old. All right. Would living behind yourself, this is from Deb, be considered holding yourself back? I don't know, Deb. It seems like that could be very symbolic. Living out in front is sort of speeding towards something that hasn't happened. Living behind is sort of like I'm stuck in the past or I'm holding myself back. Yeah, it could be living off to the side as I'm not really fully in, I'm kind of partially in. Yeah, there's probably so many different symbolic. I would say, what does it feel like to you? Yeah, great question by Amy. How do you remember to pull yourself out of your activated state to come to the present moment? I know all the techniques, but I forget to use them. How many of you forget to use them, right? When I end up in fight flight. Okay. Thank you, Amy, for this question. First of all, when your nervous system goes into fight flight, you can't stop it. So that was that slide that essentially was like, you can't think your way through fight flight. You can't rationalize your way through it. You can't tool your way through it. It just happens. So when we are in that sort of dysregulated state, the nervous system is going to do what the nervous system is going to do. Now, what I do believe is we can be doing lots of embodiment, sort of somatic nervous system regulation work in between times, in between the stressors, that create a more strong and fluid system so that when the stressor comes, we are not as prone to stay stuck in fight flight or stuck in freeze. Our nervous system becomes more adaptable, it becomes more fluid. So in some ways it's like meditation. We don't meditate for the 15 minutes we do it. We meditate for the rest of the day. So when we meditate, sometimes it feels like nothing's happening in those 15 minutes. But because we do the meditation, then the rest of our day unfolds differently. It's sort of the same idea with a lot of these tools, is that when you are in an activated state, you are, essentially your frontal lobes, your executive functioning is offline. So it's hard to, when you're in one of those activated states, to be like, oh, but I know how to breathe and I know how to hum and I know how to rock and I know, when you're activated, you're activated. So you have to let the activation pass. And then in the times that you're not activated, you're doing these tools so that the activations maybe don't last quite as long. So if I have a client in my office who's in an activated nervous system dysregulated state, I know that they're not going to remember anything I say to them. So I know better than to process, what do you think this means? What's going on? They're not going to remember any of it because they're sort of offline. So ideally, it would be helpful if we had someone with us that said, okay, let's get into our body. I want you to feel your feet. Let's breathe a little bit. Let's rock. Let's make some sound. Let's hum a little bit, But I agree that when we're in that activated state, Amy, it's pretty hard to remind ourselves of all of these tools. So in many ways, the tools are there for you to do in the between times as well, to sort of strengthen the vessel, so to speak. I hope that helps. Ooh, Nancy, you want to know about the elastic versus connective tissue? Yeah. Okay, so I have really cool slides for this that they're on my other computer, so I can't actually pull them up right now. And if you want a little bit more research on this, I'll see if I can find the article or the site and I'll drop it into the show notes.
But there are certain people that have more elastic connective tissue. Um, they tend to be more hypermobile. They tend to be extremely flexible. Whereas you have other people that have a more dense connective tissue, meaning they're naturally not, they're naturally more strong, but they're not as flexible. And there has been some researchers that are looking at that as it relates to people's nervous system responses. And I'm trying to remember all the details. I don't remember all the details because I talked about this, I think, last year in a course that I taught, but I can still see the slides of the different types of tissue. I will find it, and I'll drop those slides and maybe the research article into the Thinkific because I found it highly fascinating. I'm very elastic in terms of my tissue, and but I can't remember exactly what it relates to, so I'm not answering this question very well, Nancy, but I will give you the content and drop it in the Thinkific. Thank you, Lori. Yes, Stephen Hayes is the one who talks about pain and suffering, and that it might be when we're having chronic pain in our body, it might be because we're not fully embodied, and that the body is producing pain to try to get us back into the body. Yeah, thank you. Stephen Hayes is his name, and he, I believe, is out of like Australia, but he's got a really good website, and he's got a lot of books that he's written. So Stephen Hayes. All right. I think I got through all of the Q&As. Thanks for writing stuff in there. Any other questions? Oh, Kate, so I'm kind of trying to go back in the webinar chat. There's a lot in here. Kate asks a really interesting question. What is the messaging or meaning of loss when it occurs repetitively in our lives? I'm just sitting here for a moment. So I don't have a clear answer for this one, Kate, but I mean, loss is clearly a part of the human experience. All of us will lose something precious to us, whether it's a person, an animal, a job, a relationship at some point. And so it's definitely just part of what we sign up for in this very dense earth school that we're in. But I hear that what you're wondering about is that there's been some repetitive loss, and what is the messaging? The best way that I think we can get guidance from what I think of as our higher self, I believe that we each have a soul that is deeply wise and really knows what we need. Which is why when I work with people, my theoretical orientation is that I don't have the answers are in you. And so I'm going to guide you into you through the body, through your breath, through somatic work, so that you can actually find your answer instead of relying on me to give you an answer that may or may not be true. So Kate, all this loss that you've been going through, what I would recommend is touching the body. So let's say this is my question. Say I'm living out lots of loss. I would first sort of go in, I would drop in, I would feel my feet, I would connect with my breath, I would become really present in my body. Then where I would go next is I would ask myself, where do I feel the loss in my body? Where do I feel this experience of loss in my body? So as I'm asking that question to myself, Kate, I feel a lot of sensation around the back of my heart region, my shoulder blades. So then I would start to focus in there a little bit more, and
would even describe it. Like, so for me, it feels hot. It feels tight. It feels, but there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of movement. The coloring is dark gray. It feels almost like that static when you would turn on a TV in the 80s or 90s and you'd see all that static. That's sort of what it feels like in the back of my heart. So you start to first identify with the physical sensation. If I'm working with a person one-on-one, I might say, like, how big is it? What are the bounds of it? And then once you can really start to feel that sensation, now that I've opened my eyes, it's gone, but when I was in, I could really feel it. Then you start to ask that sensation, like, what are you here to teach me? What do I need to know? How long have you been here? What is the lesson you're trying to convey to me? I mean, the body speaks in symbols. That's the challenge of figuring out what our bodies are trying to tell us, because they don't speak in the English language. They don't say, Betsy, you need to do this. Instead, it shows up like an ache. It shows up like a persistent cough. It shows up like intensity. And so it's going into the sensation. It's sitting with it. It's being with it. It's sometimes like I'll even say to myself, I see you. I see that pain. I can feel it. I see you. I know that you're there. I'm with you. I'm not leaving you. I'm not abandoning you. I'm with you. And then asking wherever you're feeling loss in the body, what's my lesson? What is this about? What do I need to learn from this? How am I meant to grow from this? And, for years of doing this kind of work in my own body and in my own system, there are times that sometimes, boom, I get a huge answer. Like, it's there. It's like, Betsy, boom. It either comes as an image, or it comes as a word, or it comes as a memory. But Kate, there's also a lot of times that I do this work and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I have this pain in my right side of my low back. It's been there for years. I've talked to this part of my body so much. I still don't really understand what it's about. I haven't unlocked it yet. I haven't figured it out. Will I ever figure it out? I don't know. And for many years, I just wanted to cut it out. I just want to cut this out. I just don't want this in my body. It doesn't belong there. And I've realized that that doesn't help at all. That it's more a sense of like, I see you. I'm with you. I know you're there. I know you're hurting. Just want you to know I haven't forgotten about you. I'm attempting to listen. I'm sorry that I'm not figuring it out yet. So this dialogue with the body is so powerful. So Kate, I hope that gives you maybe a pathway to tread down, maybe get some ideas. Someone asked, are you going to suggest good books on shadow work? So I did a Wisdom Wednesday on it last Wednesday, and that recording is in your Thinkific educational portal. Books for it. Yeah, I do have a couple books. I will put shadow work book suggestions underneath that video in the educational portal. How does that sound? So that you can start to read up again. Just like Body Keeps a Score, I saw recently at Target. I recently at Target picked up a book that was like a shadow work journal. And I was like, wow, people are really into this all of a sudden. They're selling it at Target. So I will put some good books about shadow work in there. Okay, I have another great question here from Alexandra. I believe that weight gain could also be considered emotion energy being stored in the body as information related to trauma. Do you have insight into how to feel into understanding and releasing that weight? Oh, so love this question. So love this question. Yes, from a mind-body perspective, there are so many reasons that our bodies carry extra weight that are beyond calories in and calories out. And I think this is such a common thing for women. Absolutely, there is some belief that the weight is there as protection. It's protecting us from vulnerability in the world. It's protecting us sometimes from, maybe subconsciously, we're afraid of love, or we're afraid of connection, or we're afraid of being seen. And so the weight can feel protective. It can feel like, oh, this keeps me a little bit more invisible in the world. And there definitely is research. I'm trying to think if it's in The Body Keeps the Score. There is definitely research that children who have had more adverse childhood experiences, such as trauma, such as abuse, such as loss at an early stage in their life, have a higher rate of obesity and health problems later in life. So it's absolutely related, or can be related, to early trauma. So then we get into the question, if I'm carrying weight for emotional, energetic, psychological reasons that I'm not aware of, how do I begin to release it? This is $1 million question, and again, I don't have one clear way. I don't even have multiple clear ways. This is such an individual journey. I just talked to a woman this last week. She was actually on our podcast, and she was talking about how in college she had gained weight, and then she went into a very male-dominated field. And she found that she could play the role of the tomboy and wear the big baggy clothing and carry the extra weight, and she was actually taken seriously because she could be sort of like, in her words, I could be like the guy hanging out with the guys. And then she had the experience of being around a bunch of women. She was a producer, and her experience around these women was feeling into her feminine nature. And she was like, wow, I really like that. And for her, the weight just kind of, it was her awareness of like, oh, wait, I'm totally disconnected from my inner feminine. I want to connect to it. And by doing that, she said it was crazy. She's like, I didn't do anything. The weight just fell off. But then she found that she was not taken as seriously. She found that she was objectified. She felt overly vulnerable, right? So, and I have also had clients with this exact same story, is that they've lost the weight and then they feel so vulnerable and so overwhelmed by the objectification in our culture that the weight came right back on as a form of safety. So if you are someone who is wondering, why am I carrying this weight? I do think it is a process, and it might be a nonlinear process of beginning to understand the trauma, the weight, how the weight is protecting you, what the benefit of the weight is, even working on how would it feel if it wasn't here. Can I even imagine that? There are lots of layers. And I think that this work, although it could be done on your own with a lot of self-inquiry and a lot of sort of internal journaling and questioning, being with the body, loving the body, talking to the body, I do think that working with someone, a professional, someone licensed to sort of really help begin to make sense of this would be useful. But I do believe that when we work with the trauma, we get, I think for everything, whether it's we're carrying extra weight, we have an autoimmune disorder, we have depression, we have post-traumatic stress, that whatever we're dealing with, there's always a root. So often what happens is when we're, and this is, my field is guilty of this, that we can stay at the surface. We can give all these tools that are dealing with the surface symptoms instead of going deep down into the root and figuring out like what is at the source of this. So for me, my body hatred was, the source of it was this trauma that happened to me when I was 5. I didn't know that. It was repressed. I didn't know that for 15, 20 years. But until I got to the real source of my pain, I couldn't really fully heal and make peace in my own body. So sometimes this process is taking us deeper and deeper, deeper, deeper down into the shadow to figure out what's the original trauma or traumas that are there that then my symptoms are reflecting to me. That was a very long and arduous question, but I'm really glad you asked it. I think that a lot of people can relate to that. And I hope at least parts of it were helpful, maybe something new to think about. Michelle asks, if we do feel something like pain, is it spiritual bypassing to do things like acupuncture? Absolutely not. No, 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 no. For anything, whether it's weight, whether it's pain, whether it's some other kind of disease process, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, do we need to just sit with the discomfort indefinitely? No. I mean, it's useful for us to sit with it and be with it and talk to it, but it's also so important to do things that relieve it. So yeah, if I have a headache, I might take a moment to say, what is this from? What's going on? Did I have gluten today? What's happening? But I always take, ibuprofen or something. So absolutely, it's not spiritually bypassing to relieve your pain. Spiritual bypassing is when we totally avoid all of it, right? We float up and away as a way to distance ourselves from what's truly going on at hand. But no, take care of yourself. Get the acupuncture. Oh, Lynn. I appreciate you, Lynn. Lynn, talk about wisdom. Boom, boom. She writes, it's so important to thank my body when nothing hurts. Oh, such a good way to end our call today. Yes. So it's very easy for us to only focus on what's not working. That's the negativity bias that we talked about last week. But it's as equally useful for us to feel gratitude for the big toe that doesn't hurt, for, the low back that feels really fluid and good today, right? So yeah, thanking our body. It's as important for us to dialogue with the body and gratitude as it is to be like, what's going on? What do I need to learn from this? So yes, thank you, Lynn, for that beautiful reminder. All right, everyone, we're at the end. I hope this was useful. I don't know if I got through all the questions. I apologize if I didn't see yours. I tried my best. And some of those other resources that you guys were asking, I will try to get them put into our online educational portal so they're there for everyone. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week. Keep doing those meditations that are coming your way. Look forward to Fanny on Wednesday night as we map our nervous system. And then I'll be with you again next Monday. Maybe we'll see you at some of these Glimmer events or the yoga as well. All right. Much love to all of you.